It is great to have everyone here today, and welcome to our latest webinar. And our good friend from Tethr CEO Robert Beasley. Robert, great to see you, my friend.
You too, Andrew. Good to be with you today.
Yeah, definitely. Real excited about your company and what you guys are doing, and you've been around for a while. This is not a a brand new startup. You guys actually have some amazing customers that leverage your technology every single day, and this is something that you've been building for quite some time. I think it's appropriate for us to kick this off with you talking about kind of the origin story, if you will, of Tethr, because I think it's super relevant to this conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. So Tethr was actually founded in 2013, and the founding team started out trying to solve a really, really hard problem, and that is to train a machine to understand human conversation and to find insights in human conversation. So we built a platform that can take phone calls and chat conversations and anywhere there's a two-way discussion happening between agents and customers, and be able to analyze those conversations and derive meaningful insights for the business.
Yeah, that's it's a very cool thing. There's other companies that attempt to do this as well. You have some very unique kind of DNA around this, because it really speaks to the insights and how you capture those, but how you interpret those and then provide meaningful, actionable insights back to the leadership team. Talk about that real quick, and what it ties into and how you source all that.
Yeah, probably one of the unique things about Tethr is when we started, we formed a partnership with a company called CEB, and it's now part of Gartner Group. They had done over a decade of research in both sales and customer experience. And so the books that people would be familiar with would be the Challenger Sale and the Effortless Experience. And so as a part of our partnership with them, we took all of that intellectual property and the research and everything that they had learned over 10 years, and we used that as a starting point for training the AI engine inside of Tethr. And so it was really kind of this combination of technology and research that came together to really seek to understand what's happening in conversations within customers.
Got it. You know, the research that went into to that book, the Challenger Sale, and then later, of course, Effortless Experience, is fascinating. I mean, it took years to build and develop, and you've leveraged those insights out of that research and married that up against this conversational analytics engine that you've built.
That's right.
A really unique approach. That term, conversational analytics, it's not a new concept, right? It's been around for a while. I think you and I chatted recently where you said something interesting to me, Robert, that it used to be kind of a nice to have, and that is no longer the case. It's now a strategic imperative, if you will, for businesses. Why is that? Talk about it.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. In the early days, the technology was new. So when we were first talking to companies in 2015, 2016, people didn't even realize what was possible. And so we were effectively educating the market on, no, you can actually use a machine to listen to your conversations and find these things. And so people were amazed at first, but people didn't already have a line item in their budget for this type of technology because it simply didn't exist, prior to that. And so we were kind of paving the way, or pioneers, you might say, in the market and doing that. And I think what happened is over time, people saw, oh, it actually works, and they gained confidence in it and started hearing from their peers. But then in my mind, everything was accelerated when COVID happened, because prior to COVID, in a large contact center, everybody was in a single location or multiple individual locations. Supervisors could walk around among their agents and be able to listen over their shoulders and be able to feel like they had their finger on the pulse of what was going on with those customer conversations. And as we all know, like overnight, all of a sudden agents are scattered to their homes, and companies are left wondering what's going on in my customer conversations. And so that really accelerated the need. I think the need was already there, but it just made it happen over 6 months where everybody said this is a must have and no longer a nice to have. And so that really helped us, because no matter whether the agent's down the hall, in a cube that you can go listen over their shoulder, if they're at their house, you still need to be able to listen at scale. And that's what Tether enables companies to do.
Yeah, to listen at scale, it's such an important thing. If you think about, without Tether, without your technology in place, how companies attempt to solve this problem, how we've always attempted to solve the problem, right? Around QA, for example, being a completely manual process. Talk about that a little bit, because I think it's really helpful to kind of juxtapose how we've always done this versus this new way that you guys are really leading on. How have companies typically handled QA? How they typically handled performance management, being able to identify what's being said when and how effective that is? How have they always tackled that problem?
Yeah, so I think it makes sense to talk about QA first, and that's sort of the agent side of the conversation, and maybe a little bit later we can pick up the customer side of the conversation. So the agent side of the conversation, traditionally QA is, I'm going to listen to 4 calls for each agent in a month, and I'm going to score them, and I'm just going to pick them at random.
Right.
And so you could pick 4 random calls that may or may not be the agent's best calls, and you're not going to be able to roll up any macro insights on how does that agent really do. And you already paid that agent to answer that phone call and handle the 7 or 10 minutes on the call, and now you're paying somebody else to go sit and listen to them and then fill out a bunch of check boxes on did they do all of these things. So it adds a significant amount of cost to something that's already viewed as a cost center. And so that's been the traditional approach, is just manual listening and using manual scorecards and providing that feedback to agents.
Yeah, and it's such a painful thing. Companies staff for that. Large contact centers have entire teams dedicated to what you just described. And man, there's just such a much smarter way to handle this problem now, driven by artificial intelligence. You talked also about kind of the voice of the customer. Let's talk about that kind of side of it as well, because as we're ingesting 100% of these interactions, the other really enormous benefit from this, Robert, is we're now listening in real time to at a macro level what our customers are telling us. And that can also drive amazing insights for the business. Talk about that.
Yeah, and so I guess real quick on the agent side, we go from that manual approach to now you can use a platform like Tether. We have over 1,000 pre-built insight models that can tell you any little thing that happens in a call, and you can look at that through the lens of each individual agent. So now what we can do is we can look at each individual agent across every single one of the interactions and be able to tell them, here are the things that you do well consistently, not just on one call, but consistently. Here are the things that you're struggling with consistently. So then we can provide targeted coaching down to the agent at an agent level. And so we provide tools, scorecards where you can look at all of those variables. We have scoring models that can look at the whole interaction and say, on the entire interaction, scale of 1 to 10, how did the agent do in handling this? And so you can quickly zoom in on the big issues. But then also we have something called inbox insights, where agents can learn well if they can be given a little bit of a snapshot. And so we can give them a daily snapshot of here were all the calls you handled and what you did good, what you need to work on, and give that to them in a daily digest in their inbox. And then sitting side by side with that, as you can move into this world of coaching the agent real time during the call, and or serving up content to them, and or alerting their supervisor if something significant happens during the call. And so we've built all those means so that you can really wrap around the agent and be able to provide feedback in all the ways that could really help them.
Yeah, that's powerful. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, so then I was just going to turn to your question about the customer side. You think about sort of manual QA and listening to calls. What that doesn't do is it doesn't roll up any insights across all of your customer interactions. And so that's exactly what we've done, is been able to provide that piece of the puzzle too, so that you can feed that not only to the call center, but to the head of CX. And so in these kind of intense economic times, software purchases and all purchases for that matter are scrutinized at a higher level. And so platforms like Tethr, to justify purchases for new prospects and even to retain your existing customers, you have to be providing business value. And what can happen sometimes with interesting technology like Tethr is you can get kind of lost in the forest and just be digging around and finding interesting things, but you have to ask the question, are those interesting things actually moving the needle for the business? And so what we've done in 2022 and rolling into 2023 is we've coined this phrase, the big three. And so the big three are the three biggest metrics that leveraging Tethr can move for the business. And so the first is churn, the second is sales, and the third is cost. And so you think about that, the first thing on everybody's list is I have to keep my existing customers. I don't want to lose any of them. Retention, churn. And so we help companies reduce churn. And then the second question that people say is, how do I get more customers? And so Tethr can analyze all those conversations and tell you, here are the things that you do to win more customers and so forth. And then the last thing is, how do I serve those customers at a lower cost? And so we can look at what's driving cost in a call center.
Yeah, got it. Maybe speak more to that really quick, because you're spot on. I mean, the biggest challenges we're seeing from our clients today, much of it driven around the labor market. A year ago, if they wanted to hire people, they couldn't, because they couldn't find people to put butts in seats in a contact center. Today, it's even worse, because even if you could find people, you're being often told you can't hire, right? Because we're cutting costs and driving costs out of the business. Speak to that real quick, because the cost element, I just want to reference your technology helps drive cost out of the business. One big way it does that is by making our existing agents radically more efficient, more effective. Speak to that in a moment. How does that happen? Maybe even give us an example of that.
Yeah. So just from a cost standpoint, I mean, the first way that you drive out costs is you use a machine to do the QA and not pay people to do that. So you save a tremendous amount just on that. Second, the big cost drivers that we see are first and foremost repeat calls. And so anytime a customer has to call in multiple times to get that solved. And so Tethr can, when the customer calls in and says, I've called in 5 times about this, or I called in about this yesterday, Tethr's listening to that. And as soon as they say that, then the next thing they say on the why they're having to call in, we capture all of that. And so we can tell you why customers are having to call in multiple times, and so that you can address that situation. And there are such a wide variety of drivers of repeat calls, but that's the first thing. The second thing is we've all moved away from, the world where we're trying to, get agents off the phone. Instead of it being a 5-minute and 37-second call, let's get it down to 5 minutes and 15 seconds or something like that. So, because it's a poor customer experience. But when you have a novel, if your average call time is 6 minutes, and you've got these calls over here that are lasting 12 minutes or 24 minutes, you want to drill into those. And so we look at those and we say, okay, what's driving these abnormally long calls? And if we can just cut those in half, or get them a little bit closer to the mean, then we will have saved every one of those minutes is money. And so we look at that, the average handle time of anomaly type calls. And then I'd say a third area that comes up quite often for our customers is channel switching, where companies have invested a ton of money in self-service tools that may be accessible through your website or through a mobile device or whatever it may be. And somehow that channel failed, and the customer had to pick up their phone and call into the most expensive channel because they couldn't get it done elsewhere. And a lot of times the company doesn't know what's driving that, but we can tell them that because the customer says, I was on your website and I was trying to ... and explain what the ... was to them.
And I think it's a completely legit argument as well that, those things that you mentioned, long hold times, or repeat calls on the same issues, so trying to increase first call resolution. if you're not performing well on those things, it translates into a really poor customer experience, which then translates into higher customer churn, which was
That's
the
right.
first thing that you brought up, right? Is this is gonna cut down on churn with customers. I would imagine it also has an effect on cutting down on churn with agents.
Yes.
We find oftentimes in the contact center that the job of the agent is oftentimes the underappreciated, right? And
Mhm.
it's not a desirable job for a lot of people because they get beat up all the time, and they often complain. Their number one complaint is a lack of tools and resources. Talk about how Tether is actually making the job of the agent not just more effective, but frankly more rewarding for the agent.
Yeah. So a lot of times we talk about this idea of not using the insights just to beat up your agents.
Yeah,
And that's why earlier when I was talking about agent performance is to be able to tell them, here are the things that you're doing really well. Like,
yeah,
let's start there, just that.
good.
Like almost nobody hears that. What are you
That's
doing
right.
well?
That's right.
And so
Yeah,
that's where we start. I think the other thing is that for the average call center service interaction, there's probably 10 to 20 main types of calls that they're handling,
yeah,
problems that they're solving every day. And so you imagine the hardest part and where a lot of the churn happens is in that first kind of 30 days, 60 days. And it's because they don't get out of the blocks quickly. And so with Tether, you can basically have a little library of here are the 20 things that customers are going to ask you. And here's an example of an agent handling that question really well. And
yeah,
so literally day one or even day zero before you start, you can listen to the library and go, okay, I know how to handle these questions. So then you feel better when you get on the phone, you can handle the questions better. And so just success breeds success, and it helps with kind of agent onboarding and agent retention.
yeah. No question. Such an important thing right now. If I'm a CX leader and I've built this team and I'm managing and coaching this team, any help that I can get to not just make that team more effective, but to allow that team to stick, right?
Yeah.
Because to replace that headcount right now is so difficult. You mentioned one other part of your big three, which
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with, and that's selling more, right? How
Yeah.
do you leverage Tether to help companies, help brands sell more, new customers, new logos, new relationships? And I want you to speak to that, but give us an example of that.
Mm.
You have a lot of companies that are leveraging your technology, and you have some amazing examples of accomplishing exactly what I just described. They're increasing sales in ways that are directly attributable to Tether. In our conversation, you talked a little bit about True Green.
Mm.
Maybe that's a good example. That was a fascinating one.
Yeah, I can tell you that story. So, and I guess it starts before even talking about them with all of our customers. What we seek to do is provide kind of 80% of the answers that they need with out of the box insights. And so where does that come from? It comes from the 1,000+ unique insight models that I mentioned earlier, where
Yeah.
literally you don't have to do anything. You turn on the machine, it already understands these 1,000 things. It already understands all these different objection types and when their customers expressing frustration or confusion or uncertainty or all of these things, or is your agent using advocacy, or all the behaviors you're looking for. So all of that's already been trained. That starts with the research from way back when, and it goes all the way through listening to millions of calls. And so
Yeah.
for a customer on day one, Tether's going to immediately tell you, here are the objections you're getting, here's some of the rebuttals you're using. And so we can tell you it was a price objection. We can tell you all those types of things. And so
Hmm.
that's the immediate value out of the box type of stuff. Then there's the more customized stuff where every business is unique, all of their products are unique, all of their language is unique. And so, for an example, for True Green, a lawn care company, they're massive. Like they have over 3,000 agents on the phone handling calls. And so at one point in time, to sell more lawn care, the things that Tether can find is something you would never dream up, you'd never come up with in a conference room, but it can listen to all these calls and find out, wow, there's this one agent over here that keeps saying this thing and he seems to be closing more than everybody else. What's he saying? And Tether can tell you that. And so an
Yeah.
example to sell more lawn care is saying the phrase something related to walking barefoot in your backyard. And so it's like, oh, wow, I would have never thought to say that. But when you're thinking about your grass and you're looking
Yeah,
at it and has stickers
yeah,
in it, it's like the idea of walking barefoot in your backyard sounds pretty good and it helps you sell more. And then
interesting.
same thing would be true for like mosquito service. So
Mhm.
you think you don't go outside on your patio and barbecue and have a beer because the mosquitoes are going to eat you up. So if you say something about barbecuing on your patio with a beer, you can sell more mosquito service. So those are the things that kind of the deeper mining that
Yes.
Tethr's AI engine does can surface and tell you, and we can point that at all kinds of variables.
Yeah, I love that. That's really powerful. And if you tie that back to your point to how every company is different around their product, their
Mhm.
story, the value
Yeah.
they provide, and so to be able to get all those insights and then customize that based on their own language. There's been a lot of talk, obviously, about artificial intelligence. It's blowing up everywhere, and we're seeing some amazing use cases for it. In some cases, Robert, it takes many months to train a model to deploy the technology, and
Yeah.
you're 4 5 6 months down the road before a customer is really starting to see value out of that. You guys have a very different approach to that, and I'd love to get your take on this. A customer decides today that they want to leverage Tethr's technology. How
Mhm.
long realistically, before they start seeing value to their business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's part of what plays to our strengths as a company. The fact that we have been around, we did have to pioneer and figure these things out. We've just got this foundation that's you can't build overnight,
Yeah,
and it starts with kind of the AI engine sitting underneath, and the fact that it's been trained over so much time, so many different industries, so many different use cases, but also this kind of pre-built set of integrations that we have. So all the major kind of voice platforms and chat platforms and case management platforms and everything that you'd want to connect to, we already have an integration connector for those. And so
mm,
if it's a cloud-based system, you can literally authenticate, turn that on, and the calls will start flowing right into Tether immediately. And so literally day one, a customer can get insights. And so we launched something in early 2022 called Tether RX. And so RX, it's prescriptive. And so
yeah,
what the customer gets when they get Tether RX is they get prescriptive pre-built dashboards that have been pulled together by experts that understand each of these things. And they get a dashboard called Churn RX. It tells them about churn. Sales RX, it's all about sales. Cost RX, Customer RX for customer
yeah.
experience, and so forth. And so you can literally turn on the integration, calls start flowing, and you're seeing those things light up on
Wow.
dashboards on day one. And so it doesn't always happen that way. There's obviously security approvals and IT things and all kinds of stuff,
Sure,
but
sure.
in terms of the tech's ability to support a rapid onboarding. And then I would also just say something else, which is we launched Tether, which is, as far as we know, the first in the industry where you can sign up, you can come to our website, you can sign up, you can log in, you can see dummy data immediately.
Yeah,
You can upload 100 or 1,000 of your calls, we don't care. And you can
yeah.
see insights on your calls inside of Tether all in the same day. And so those are some of the things that we're trying to do to drive to kind of this idea of time to value. We really feel passionately about time to value.
Yeah, such an important thing. We have a few minutes left here. For those interested, if you have a question, pop it into the chat, and we'll be happy to surface that for Robert. Robert, this time to value, really big deal.
Mhm.
Combine that though with this idea of machine learning. Your engine obviously does continue to get smarter,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what's the expectation around that? If I'm running the business, I've got few hundred seats in my contact center. The level of intelligence that I can get out of this thing in the first 30 days versus 6 months later when it's learned all this stuff. Speak to that real quick.
Yeah, so on the AI side, first, all of those pre-built insight
Yep.
models, each customer gets those, and so then each customer is able to extend those and add to the same model.
Yep.
And what that allows us to do is to crowdsource insights. So then the engine for all customers gets smarter.
Yes.
And so that's the first thing. The second
Yep.
thing is because we've standardized those models, we have benchmarking in there, and so we can show you on any given variable, how are you doing versus the average company, performing company? How are you doing versus the top quartile? And what that helps companies do is really prioritize what do they need to focus on. There may be so many things, more things than you can imagine to fix in your business. So where do you start? And so we can tell them, here's number 1, 2, 3. Then the second thing on the AI side is if you want to build a unique model to your company, in the past, companies, that was a heavy lift for companies. It was model building and scripting, and you had to figure out all the words and phrases and proximity and all kinds of complicated things to be able to build your own model. Now you basically just tell Tether, hey, I want to find things about billing, or I want to find things about a price objection, and you push a button and the AI goes and digs through all your data and comes back and gives you the answer on, here are all the things that we think align to what you're asking for. And you just say yes, no, yes, no. And you've just trained your own model because the AI did all the work for you. You don't have to know anything about what's going on under the covers. So it's rapid custom insight building.
Yeah, rapid custom insight building. I love that. A question here I'm being pinged on is your ability to, those benchmarking is, I think, is fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you have the ability to do that in a specific vertical? Like, can speak to kind of how you appeal to specific verticals, healthcare, financial services, whatever.
So you could definitely apply the benchmarking to verticals. Right now, what we've chosen to do is to find all of the models that are relevant cross industry. And so a real simple example would be frustration. So frustration is frustration is frustration. If a customer is frustrated, it doesn't matter what industry it is. And so we focus there so that companies can really get the low-hanging fruit and apply the benchmarking there to the behaviors that are common to any industry, because they get the maximum value from that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. This has been a fascinating conversation, Robert. For our partners that are learning about Tether, for customers that are here that are starting to process this and think about how it could be impactful for their business, what's a closing comment you'd give them on what they should do next?
I would say go to tethr.com, Tether without the E, TETHR.com, and look at everything we have to share about the company and the product. Talk to you guys, obviously CX Effect, and then jump in and try it out through Try Tether, and we'll take good care of you.
That's fantastic. I love that. That's awesome. We've put the link to the website for Tether there as well, guys. If you go to cxbasecamp.com, there's some great information there as well. You'll also see this webinar posted there soon that you can refer to others on. But man, what an amazing way to get incredible insights into your business, and that are actionable insights that help us act, better, faster, smarter as we compete out there. I love what you guys are doing, Robert. Congratulations on what you guys have built. It's really impressive.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it. Enjoyed the conversation.
Indeed. Indeed. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.